Hey everybody, it says we're live. We should be live. Let me know how this sounds. Is anyone out there? Welcome to the State of the Union for the podcast, the Penske File channel at this point. So I'm going to give people a chance to catch up here. I'll just kind of blather indiscriminately. Clay, how are you? We can make
Good.
small talk until people come in.
I'm good. Welcome to my fellow Penske-philians to this State of the Union.
Penske Philic. That's the T-shirt right there. We don't push the T-shirts too hard. The return is so low. They're so
I've never I have no opportunity to see anyone wearing one. So
I know that's the downside of it. The upside is that it's very little work, and they just sit there. And if anyone wants to give you $1, they can buy one, and that's the upside of them.
It is nice. It is nice to know that they are out there somewhere, and that some people have bought them.
Still waiting. Let me know. Someone hit 1 if you can hear us, if we sound okay. Otherwise, I guess we can sort of get into this. This is a State of the Union for the podcast. I thought we'd just have a casual. There it is. Jason with a 1. Thank you. Permission to come aboard to Hilltown Grammars is granted. Hello, everybody. There's about 22 of you at this point. Some of you are listening and hitting 1. Jason, thank you. This will be a State of the Union podcast. I think this will be a pretty casual, just a casual podcast, casual live stream. The kids are doing it these days. We're going to go through our stats for 2020 if people care about that. We'll do a little bit of like Q&A, If anyone has a question, feel free to pop it into the comments. We'll try to answer it.
Is this going to be one of those ones where we do it for like 3 hours and never get past the delay between the two of us? So it's 3 hours of.
Sound is low but good. Maybe. Not to be a smart ass, maybe that's your speaker, Cameron. I think we were told this sounds okay, so I'm going to go with it. And if anything goes wrong, just let me know. But I think the sound should be fine. And after the Q&A, what was the other thing? Oh, we just talked about our 2020 in review, Clay. We're a little bit late. Everyone's probably burnt out on 2020 greatest hits lists and stuff like that. But I figured we'd just have casual stuff. So pretty casual. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you for watching the shows this year. Thank you for watching this live stream right now. It's much appreciated. Hope everyone had a good new year and an even better 2021 than we had in 2020. That's about it. Clay, should we get started with statistics to get the boring stuff out of the way?
Yeah, please do. I can't. Hold on. Wait, let me paint eyeballs onto my glasses so I can shut my eyes while you talk.
Which show do you want to start with? Badass, Rotten Horror, Star Trek?
Let's go.
Those are the 3 active shows that had podcasts this year.
Let's go from the bottom to the top.
So Badass is on the bottom of my list. Badass is on the bottom of my list.
Sure.
Badass, your second season started in June of 2020. You had Shadow of the Bat all the way to Deep Freeze was the last episode that you covered.
That would be season 3.
Season 3, sorry.
Yes.
So
Wes doesn't listen to the show.
Well, Shadow of the Bat season 3?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've only done season 3 this year?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You've had 14 episodes of Badass since June 2020. Rotten Horror has had 25 episodes.
Yeah, baby.
Since January. You started in January. It's like a perfect year-long process of this. The introduction came out like January 4th, and you've had 25 episodes since.
So, Badass season 3 started in June?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you took a long break from the end of
that
2019 into 2020. There's more stats, but they're all kind of jumbled together. So Star Trek is obviously the bigger show, and we started the year on January 6th with DS9's What We Left Behind, the documentary, which feels like 7,000 years ago, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Then we did the Kelvin films. We did Picard Season 1. Enterprise's Broken Bow came out in April 2020. Enterprise's Season 1 ended, and Season 2 started in July of 2020. We did Lower Decks starting in August and ending in October, and Discovery's 3rd season started in October of 2020. So that's a lot of Star Trek that we covered.
Have we done more episodes in 2020 than any previous year as far as just like straight up numbers?
Raw episodes, I would think so. We started to get more consistent, and then the other 2 shows kicked in at that point too. So there's 126 total podcasts this year between all the shows.
Damn.
100 on just MP3s, 146,000 downloads, which is up 13% over 2019, which is about 400 downloads a day.
This is this is for everything.
This is all shows mixed together, but only MP3s, MP3 versions of it. So we were up 13%, actually with a COVID lag, which I thought was just something people were talking about in the news, but it actually did hit the podcast fairly hard. We dipped about 30 to 40% in those 3 months, below like what's usual for the
Oh, really?
March, April, and May.
Because it was over after that.
It was things were done. The
Yeah.
biggest country that listens to us is the U.S. with about 85,000 of the 146. 35% of people use Apple Podcasts. 12% use Spotify, which is surprising to me. It's the number 2 app for listening to podcasts. Top
You guys
downloads
gotta
this year.
Start listening through Spotify so we can get one of those exclusive Spotify deals.
What do you think the number 1 show downloaded this year was, at least through the MP3s?
Like single episode?
Mm-hmm. It's a badass episode.
Is it really? Oh, is it the one where we talk about Tim Burton?
No.
No idea. Is it the first appearance of the brand manager?
It's the Curse of the White Knight Q&A episode.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
Has 1,364 downloads. Number 2 is At an Arcadia 2, which is the Picard finale. Then Remembrance, which is Picard's opener. And Star Trek 2009 and Star Trek Into Darkness are the top 5 downloads this year.
Wow, that's interesting. I guess it makes sense.
April was the worst month because of COVID. Took a big hit due to COVID and downloads those couple months. YouTube, 500,000 views this year. We gained 1,000 subs. 100,000 hours watched. Top videos in terms of views, How to Play for Sale, which you obviously remember covering. The top 5 worst episodes of TOS. The top 5 episodes of TOS. The first one is the worst episodes of TOS. Amy Adams' Leap Year with 18,000 views.
How many of those people made it through the entire episode, Wes?
The average length view duration on that video is like 7 seconds. It's like people just clicking and they go, "This is not."
Well, there was another one you were telling me. I think was it American Psycho? I think has like a disproportionate number of views to everything else Rotten Horror
Yes.
because it's like the same length as the movie.
Same length as the
So
movie.
that's my new strategy is to make sure that our podcasts are the same length as the film to confuse people into clicking on it.
I've started putting the podcast in the title and stuff, but it doesn't stop people from thinking. I'm just shocked that many people are looking to watch Leap Year for free. Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just go
Like
find
who's
the
out
movie.
there going like, I want to watch this, but I don't want to pay for it. But I really want to see this one.
The last video is top 5 tips for Twilight Struggle. So anyone who tells me I'm doing this for money on YouTube or something, I abandoned the gaming thing, which was just pretty much which racks up the views at this point. 12% female listeners on YouTube, 88% male.
Not
The
surprising.
biggest demo, what do you think our biggest age demo is?
I
White males between the ages of what?
was gonna say white males between the ages of 45 and 55.
You're off by 10 years. 35 to 45 is the
Yeah,
biggest. It's
that
35%. 33% is 25 to 34. So it's 25 to
start.
45.
Got to start covering some young stuff. Get those young viewers.
U.S. is 43% of our audience.
Do I have to
UK
do like
is
a
10%.
makeup tutorial or something? Will that bring the
You probably
young kids
should.
in? Yeah.
We'll start doing a live
Show you
blog.
all how to contour with a beard.
And finally, Patreon went from 114 patrons in January to 124 at the time of my note taking. So thank you, patrons, for supporting the show.
Yeah, thank you very
And
much.
yeah, Point Extra G, we did start Enterprise in 2020. It does feel like a very, 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 very long time ago. 2020 request for Clay, Treehouse of Horrors review show in October.
That is not my domain. There's a Simpsons podcast I have been lucky enough to guest on with Eric Santuan, and I think he's got me penciled in to do a Treehouse of Horror at some point. I can't remember when. I could be misremembering that. He's on the thing, so ask him. He'll know.
He's in there.
Yeah.
Will it be Halloween themed, or will it just come up and will it be like Christmas in Connecticut, which came out in July of 1945, and you guys will be talking about the horror episode and Flag Day?
I will
That's
not
it for
be
this-
announcing my Justice League ass this year.
That's it for the stats. it was a good year for the podcast, I think. Do you have any thoughts in general about the year? You did Badass, you did Rotten Horror is the biggest change. That's like the newest thing. Star Trek went well, I think. We pretty much stuck to 2 episodes a week of Star Trek, which is kind of difficult, but we did it. And then it's alternating for Badass and Rotten Horror. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference this year for me was just the consistency. Because as you said, this was the first year we did Rotten Horror, which I thought launched pretty successfully, and I think people seem to enjoy. So thank you for everyone who listens to it. But we also settled into a rhythm with Badass as well, where we were going every other week, alternating Badass and Rotten Horror, which has worked pretty successfully. It makes my life a lot easier because I know when the things are coming out, and so if I have 5 episodes backed up, that means I've got 10 weeks worth of material, essentially. So it's a little bit easier to stack it and not kill myself trying to get stuff recorded. And having it more consistent, I don't run into problems like I ran into with the first season of Badass, where we had to actually re-record half of the season. I don't know, can't remember if I've ever talked about this, but Sean and I had to re-record half of the entire season. I don't mean half of the entire season of the show. I mean half of the entire season of our show. Mm-hmm. So we had to do, like, out of 15 episodes, we had to do like 8 of them again, because 4 of them, the sound quality was terrible because we didn't know what we were doing, and we had a guest on, and it didn't line up, and then I lost like a bunch of files, or he didn't send me the files or something. It was, it was a shit show.
You and Sean have very different attitudes towards Dropbox maintenance.
That's true. Yeah, we sure do. Thank God for my time machine backup, I guess is all I have to say. Yep. But we tried a couple different rollouts for Badass between the 3 seasons. The first one, we dumped them all at the same time. The second one, I don't remember how we did it, but it was not as consistent.
You didn't bank up a backlog of shows, I don't think. I think you just started doing it like the Trek show kind of is done by necessity. The Trek show is done that way, so you were a little bit more inconsistent because you didn't have something every week.
Yeah. But yeah, this year, bouncing them back and forth between Badass and Rotten Horror has made it a lot more consistent and a lot easier to kind of schedule. And I didn't realize how much I had done this in the past year. We've done it quite a bit.
It's a lot of hours. I mean, every episode is basically an hour, and then the amount of like work hours into it is probably multiply that by 3 or 4. So you're talking about like 400 or 500 hours worth of either watching something or
the thing for me that was taking so long was having to dedicate time to edit. And then this year, what I started doing was neither one of us really do a ton of editing on the shows. And so I would just listen through them as I was drawing. And instead of listening to somebody else's podcast, I would just listen to mine and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And it worked out pretty well.
I can't imagine having, as I fucking blow it up right here, I think one of the things that we at least do well in terms of the Star Trek one is that there's not a lot of pauses in conversation. I can't imagine having a podcast where I have to edit out silences, or people are like sitting there like not saying anything or going Some podcasts don't edit that out, and if they don't, I would rather they did. But at the same time, I'd rather just say something. Like saying something sounds better than nothing, or just sitting there going like I don't know.
I will say, without getting more specific than this, and this makes sense because we've been doing it the longest, the 2 of us. Our show is the most consistent audio quality wise. The other shows, they can vary sometimes.
The Star Trek show you're talking about.
Yes, the Star Trek show is the most consistent audio wise. The other shows have their ups and downs, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Which requires sometimes more work than other weeks.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Recording audio is kind of a bitch, and it's never. We've been doing this for like 7 years, and it's still kind of tedious in some ways. Yeah, it was good. It was a good year. We covered a lot of different Star Trek this year for things.
Yeah.
Lower Decks was probably the highlight.
We did
an entire
5
season of
different
Enterprise.
Shows.
Yeah. What is it? It's the movies, Picard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Yep. Lower Decks was the highlight. Discovery's third season was the low light, I think. Enterprise has been interesting. Time has passed. Where does Picard sit for you at this point? In your mind, where does when you think of Picard, do you think of anything?
Disappointment, mostly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I think Picard is like aged somewhat better, mostly because we're stuck in Discovery, I think. And while we were watching Picard, I was like, I think we had a conversation like, is Discovery better or is Picard better as a TV show? And I think it might just be nostalgia for the character.
I was
But
just
like,
gonna say,
I'd rather just watch a Picard episode, I think, than a Discovery episode at this point.
Yeah, if I had to throw something on in the background, and my only choices were Picard or Discovery, I would probably throw on either Picard. It would probably be Picard first, season 2 of Discovery second, and then season 1, season 3.
Yeah, yeah. Dustin Neal says Picard is dog poop. Yeah, it was a strange year. We didn't have a DS9 consistency or anything like that, or in terms of just one show. It was a mishmash of different things. Very appropriate for 2020, I guess.
And what's actually nice though is if you think about it, we can't be. It's tough to accuse us of being stuck in the past because we covered 5 different kinds of Star Trek across 25 years.
Yeah.
So I think we got a good smattering of the entire gamut of what Star Trek can be.
Yeah, and we should do The Expanse from the Space People. People push The Expanse. I have not seen any of it.
Hey, if you want to push the expanse of our Patreon account, then maybe we'll
The Expanse
cover
of our pockets.
Yeah.
I mean, I did want to at some point talk about like what's possible this year too, but we won't do that until later on because we haven't actually talked about it. I just figured we'd just hash it out here and see if there's anything interesting.
All new characters
Replacing us, just new.
We'll still be here, but
new podcast guests.
we'll do 2 weeks with the new characters, and then they'll fade off into the background, and we'll never talk to them again.
Yeah, so, and thanks. There's 125 patrons at this point, so I wanted to say thank you to all the patrons who make everything possible. It's been really fantastic. It's been a good year.
The Space People is a... I thought you just meant in general. I didn't realize it was a person whose name was the Space People.
The space person is a person.
I thought you meant like, all of the space fans got together and said we should do The Expanse.
The internet folk. We were pretty consistent with Patreon this time. I don't have the stats ahead of me, but we probably did 12 movies and 12 revisits or something like that across that as well. I think that's pretty much it for the stats. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It was a good year. It was solid. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack F, for their super chats. I was wondering if those showed up in the StreamYards. I do. Thank you. Very kind. Happy New Year. Aside of that, I guess we can just do, if people have questions, feel free to chime in with them. I thought we'd just do a 2020 year in review if there's anything that you've been enjoying. Did you have a favorite TV show or anything this year?
Yeah, I would say we watched Schitt's Creek finally, which I hadn't watched, but I had heard much about, as everybody else had, and I thought it was great. It was definitely the kind of show that 2020 needed because it was very enjoyable and very low conflict, so you could kind of just relax for half an hour and enjoy yourself. The surprise though for me was Cobra Kai, because when I heard that they were doing that years ago, I just didn't think twice about it because it was a YouTube original, and how good is a TV show about Cobra Kai, Karate Kid
on YouTube?
On YouTube going to be. And when it hit Netflix, I think I kind of watched
the change. I was wondering why it was coming up so much. It's because it moved to Netflix. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I kind of threw the first episode on just to see what was going on. And I think I watched maybe 2 or 3 of them in a row. I was like, I can't believe this is as good as it is. It has no right to be this good. But I just finished.
Jakey's chimes in and says it's fantastic. Listener Tark on Twitter is frequently talking about Cobra Kai as well. I know people love it. I'm just it's a tough sell for me to click the button to hit play on it.
I mean, it's Your mileage will probably vary if you don't have a soft spot for the Karate Kid. But I just finished the new third season today, and it was probably the weakest season. It started off really slow, but it ended really strong. So I'm looking forward to the next part of that. But that was one where I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, and I just burned through it. And also I started rewatching Community, and I got like attached to that show.
Yeah.
That was like when I hit the end of Community, I was legit depressed. But yeah, I think TV shows, that's probably it for me. What about you?
Mine's gonna be strange. Have you heard of the kids show Bluey?
No.
There's a show on Disney that's Australian, and it's an animated dog family, and it's for kids. It's like a preschool to toddler, or not older than that, preschool to like kindergarten, first grade type show. It's really good. It's mind-bogglingly good. It's so entertaining for parents. In addition to the kids, the episodes are like 8-minute episodes where there's this dog family, vaguely Peppa Pig-esque, but it's more funny and adult than that. It does this really clever thing of the kids love it, and it has comedy for the kids, but it also has these like really subtle parent jokes that are stuck into it too. And the father, whose name is Bandit, I think, is maybe the most inspirational father character that I've ever seen on TV, but he's also really realistic, and like he gets tired of playing with the kids and stuff like that. And but it's really funny. And like I've watched an episode after the kids have stopped and gone to bed because I've been like, this is just too funny. It's very funny. It's really shocking. I would recommend anybody, especially obviously if you have kids, that you push Bluey on them, because there's only so much Daniel Tiger I can stand to watch before I want to like blow my brains out. But Bluey is very, very funny.
So this is like, you find this legitimately fun to watch, not in that parent way where it's like your tastes skew into quality equals my kids like it and I can breathe for a second?
No, because there's been a couple nights in the past week where I've been like, you guys want to watch Bluey? And they said, no, I want to watch something else. And I go, like, I really want to watch Bluey with you guys.
Sorry, I already hit the button and I threw the remote behind me.
They're unable to tell, but I would recommend everyone watch Bluey. It's really excellent, I think. Very, very funny. That's my show of the year, and it's for kids, but it's very, 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 very good.
Nice.
Someone brought up something, Mandalorian. You wouldn't put Mandalorian on your list of top TV this year?
Yeah, I guess it would be, but Mandalorian, it didn't really hit me in a way I wasn't expecting. Like, it wasn't a surprise for me.
Yeah.
I think I liked the second season more because we weren't covering it, oddly enough, because I didn't really have to look at it too critically. I think it still has the same issues the first one did, but I do think they've settled into their world a bit more. And there are some episodes where, at the end, I was just like, man, I can't believe that was an episode of television, because it was just so cool.
People are saying the audio is low. They can hear us. I guess you do have to crank it. I cannot. I have StreamYard's just automatically adjusting the volume. So this is what StreamYard thinks is an appropriate level of volume. We can fiddle with it if people find it's worthwhile, and I can boost ourselves. But you'll have to tell us if we're in balance. Thank you, Mercer, for the super chat. Hilltown thinks the audio is fine. So our deaf listeners are having problems, hearing impaired. As a non-parent, when I discovered the existence of Daniel Tiger, I was incensed. That is not Lady Elaine Fairchild. Harumph. It's true. Found it dull, The Mandalorian. I haven't seen The Mandalorian yet. I was considering doing a podcast where I would just be the Chris Farley to Paul McCartney SNL sketch. I'd be like, did you see The Mandalorian? I don't know how well that would have gone.
It would just be the same as if I was talking to my girlfriend about it, I think.
Probably.
She's just going, yeah, that does sound cool.
When a new Star Trek series is announced, I feel unwell. When that huge Disney Star Wars announcement came out, I felt sick. I was like, this is awful. Like, how much Star Wars is it necessary to flood the airways
I'll
with?
tell you, man, speaking from the point of view of a fan, I am like psyched. Like when they announced all of those Marvel shows, I always saw people like, oh my God, Marvel, aren't you sick of Marvel? I'm like, I've been waiting for this my whole life. I've
Yes.
been waiting for this. Is like the Kevin Feige standing up there and announcing everything is basically something I probably did in my bedroom when I was 12 with like to nobody, just talking about all of the shows I wish existed. I probably have like a fake a binder I made of all these fake TV shows I wish existed. So like if it's of Mandalorian or higher quality, I'm good to go,
Yeah, I'm happy for the fans. It does hit me in some like, can I see a movie that's not brand?
Sure,
Like
sure.
it's you get a little, and also it's just I think it's just the flood of it. You know,
Yeah.
when I think about like 6 Star Trek shows, I'm like I don't need 6 Star Trek shows. What the hell's going on? And I know that they're trying to split the brands for different people, and you're not supposed to watch all of them, and we're kind of
Right.
being punished because we podcast about the stuff. But
They're also splitting the brand to make sure you don't cancel the service.
right, they need enough shows to constantly rotate it around. Which,
Yeah.
speaking of which, I get to cancel CBS All Access in a week, so that's
But,
fantastic.
on the flip side of that argument though, if the shows were good, right? Let's say Discovery was the only Star Trek show being made currently and it was fantastic. I don't think that there would be a huge drop off because, like, if something is good, I feel like people forget that they're signed up for it.
I,
Like,
I only cancel it because I don't like the show.
yeah,
If it was fine, I would keep it. Like there's months where we don't watch HBO or Netflix
sure,
sometimes
yeah,
because you're on some other series on Hulu or something, and it's like I
yeah.
don't cancel it because of
That's
that.
the other thing too. What the hell else you access? Old
Yeah,
episodes of Big Bang Theory or something.
yeah, yeah. um, yeah, I don't really have anything else about the Star Wars at that time, but yeah, it would be Bluey, and your Cobra Kai mention is appropriate. I should probably start watching that. I
Some
came up with
Poindexter G mentioned WandaVision. I was I was considering watching an episode or two of that, and then if it was good, seeing if you wanted to cover it because it has the potential to be really weird and different.
when does it
Um,
start? Is that this
I
year? It must be
think
this year,
a
right?
couple weeks. I think
Okay.
later in January. Yeah,
It would be. I mean, it'd be worth doing. I think potentially. We have to. We'll talk about schedule and stuff. Just because I think the Star Trek show has to take a little bit of a one show a week break. For people who
sure.
don't know, I have another kid coming in January. So, and Eric Sanchuan says it starts January 15th. Um,
I can't wait till these kids are old enough that we can stop doing the show, but we still take money from it, and they can start doing the show. Although once that happens,
I give my gilded microphone, just pass it down and
although
say,
I'm sure
please stop watching Bluey and come podcast about it.
I'm sure the reason that you're having these kids is so you can eventually work me out of the show.
That and hopefully one of them will become incredibly successful and I can retire and not worry about dying
Yeah.
dying in a cardboard box with just my podcast clutched to my chest as USB drives. Yeah, so the schedule will be changing at some point. The Trek show will just continue. I imagine I would just have to do it once a week instead of twice for a little bit, but WandaVision or something could fill the void there. We should also do more. The streams are easy,
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
there's you're not expected to have good audio quality on these streams. Like
Yeah.
decent is fine for a lot of it. So the streams it might be a way to go about it. Thank you everybody for the congratulations. Thank you, Mercer. Thank you, Nigel. We're a cut above. Thanks from the UK. It's late over there. Go to bed. But thank you very much. Nigel Scarf. That's the most British name of all time, I think. Thank you very much for your support. Here's my question. After hundreds of podcasts, do you enjoy Star Trek? Did you enjoy Trek before the podcast? Did you grow to enjoy it? Has your opinion changed whatsoever? Do you want to handle that one first?
Sure. I came to the show as a Star Trek fan, but not like a diehard fan. I had watched the movies and I had watched TNG infrequently when it was on, but that was pretty much where it ended. I've watched more Star Trek in the last 3-4 years, however long we've been doing it, than I have my entire life before that. And I do really enjoy it. I still wouldn't call myself like a hardcore diehard fan. But I definitely have come to appreciate, I think the biggest thing I've come to appreciate is Deep Space Nine, because I, at the time that was on, wrote it off as being, it seemed to me like it was the boring episodes of TNG, but every episode was that.
Yep, on a treadmill, just
yeah.
going nowhere, just spinning your wheels.
But it was it's very good. People aren't kidding about when they say that it's probably the best show. And I still do really enjoy the universe that they've set up. Like even Discovery, like you put a Starfleet emblem and on a uniform and put them on a starship with the cells and the spinny thing or whatever, I'm there. I'm not going to necessarily think it's the greatest thing in the world, but I enjoy the aesthetic. Let's put it that way. I'm willing to show up.
Yeah. I enjoy Star Trek. I started the podcast because I liked TNG, and I hadn't watched it in years since it had been on. My grandfather introduced it to me, and then I didn't watch it during like the college and post-college era of my life. So I thought it was a good idea to just copy Kumail Nanjiani's X-Files podcast, where he was just doing an episode every time. I was like, I like Star Trek. I'll try to do that. And then it grew out from there. So I've always liked it. I would agree with you that DS9 is probably the biggest revelation for me, and especially in terms of, I think I would take it over TNG if I had to make that choice. The only caveat there is that it's much easier to pick a TNG episode to watch than it is a DS9. DS9, you kind of have to watch the series the whole way through,
right.
And it's a lot of episodes, so it's a lot to ask of people. But I do, in the off chance I just find myself daydreaming, I do think about DS9 more than anything. Like it was the Emissary's 28th anniversary was yesterday or the day before or something, like the pilot for DS9. I just found myself thinking about like Cisco, like going away at the end of the series, and like, oh, like I wonder what Cisco's kind of up to at this point. I do not want a Cisco series. I'm not asking CBS to give me.
Yeah, you keep that shit in the down low, Wes. They're probably working on it right now. Shut up.
Sirach Lofton, I think, is podcasting about how he's available on it, but I don't want that. And if anything, DS9 has a chance to really excel in the future because they don't touch it as a property. But like that, it has the chance to remain unsullied in some way. Not that Picard has ruined TNG or anything, but when you consider TNG, you have to go, oh yeah, there's Picard too on top of that, isn't there?
Yeah, I think Deep Space Nine will get a big boost if they ever get around to remastering it. Because it was watching it on Netflix. That was at the time I think the only thing we were watching, so it didn't really stand out. But we watched. At some point, we jumped back to do an old episode of TNG or something, and I was shocked at how good. I forgot how good the remaster of TNG was, and Deep Space Nine just looks like they shot it through a coffee can.
We're just waiting for machine learning cleanup tech to get far enough. In 5 years, someone's just going to do it for free, and it's going to look fantastic, and you'll be like, that's fine.
And then it'll be on YouTube for a day, and then CBS will take it down.
CBS will take it and monetize it. Yeah, after waiting all they won't do any additional work other than just run it through a free to use machine learning algorithm and clean it up, which is fine. I'm happy to get it. It's like it's just a waiting game until the technology gets to that point. Matt says thanks. Likes our work in chemistry and honesty. Well, you don't want to know what we think about you, then, do you? Might show up on Picard. My daughter was a TOS fan, my guiding and a Spock fan. When she first saw The Wrath of Khan, first and second grade, Spock died. She burst into tears, and it took a long time to comfort her. I don't think it doesn't impact me too, although I'm unemotional in general. Cisco is the sphere data. I saw that Clay has a beast. What man? They're asking about your dog.
Oh, let me
Pliskin.
see. Pliskin. Come here. See if I can get him on camera here. Want to say hi? Come here.
This is a Targ.
Back up. Back up. Sit. Sit down.
Dog's name is Pliskin.
This is Pliskin. Say hi, Pliskin.
You've confused him now. He thinks it's over.
I know. He is a what the hell is he? He's a Great Pyrenees. We think he's got some lab in him, and he's pretty. We got him. He was. Now he's sitting down and kind of moving me out of my spot here. He was listed as a Great Pyrenees lab, but once we got him, we're like, I think he's got some pit bull in him or something. And I just
He looks like a pit bull.
I did a Google search of Great Pyrenees and American Bulldog, and it was basically an entire page full of pictures of him. So
yeah, he's got that semi terrier thing going on. And he likes to sit.
He does, yeah. He's got a heated dog bed now, so we don't see him anymore. He just spends all his time in there on the dog bed.
CBS fucked up by charging $100 per season for the TNG remasters. They did. I don't think they would do that again. HD documentary clips looked amazing. Can't wait for the book. Do you have any updates about your book?
Yeah, I'm working on the final chapter now. We're still on track for a release later this year. We hit a bit of a snag late last year because Russ was having some technical problems with his coloring. He had to redo some stuff, and I had another job I had to take in November. But we're back on track, and yeah, looking for later this year. Almost done, getting there.
Should have named him Rick Furman. The Pliskin's been around for longer than the podcast, I think.
Yeah, we've had him for. We moved here in 2013, and we got him in 2014, I think. So
yep.
Just
a year
6 or
older
7
than the
years.
podcast.
Yeah.
Miss Kitty is Point Extra G's cat.
And if
I'm
you're
a guitar
wondering,
player.
we named him Pliskin because when we got him, he had this like long teardrop coming out of one eye, and it reminded me of the eye patch on Snake Plissken. It's a cool dog name. So
Capo and Fret. It's good names for a cat.
Oh, those are good. Yeah, that's great.
It's nice when the pets are themed, appropriate, themed for something. Someone asked, no, my kids do not watch Star Trek. They do not. They're too young, and I wouldn't ask them to anyway.
They're gonna hate Star Trek. Are you kidding me?
It's for all this nonsense about like gender science.
Couple jocks who start swirling you in the bathroom after practice. You're watching Star Trek.
If you've seen how tight his spiral is, you won't ask me if he watches Star Trek. Yeah. That's one thing. The innate biological sex thing is so like distinct from birth, and I just have boys and just into fighting, and they're getting into superheroes. Interestingly, I get peppered with questions about superheroes.
Yeah, you were asking earlier if it
was a pretty intelligent. I thought it was a pretty good question. I didn't know what the answer. He asked if Hulk cannot pick up Thor's hammer. He knows that.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that Hulk can pick up Thor.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, can Hulk pick up Thor if he's holding his hammer? I was like, that's a good question. I don't know what the logic of that would be. I guess I think Grimm put something. He said he can't pick him up at that point.
If I were to take a stab at that, I would say if Thor's hammer is on the ground and Thor is holding the hammer, Hulk cannot pick him up. But if he's already in the air, I would say yes.
He's got momentum on his side, and Hulk just has to work with it. It's the physics. I showed my kid a couple TOS episodes when she was 16. That was all she could take. I moved on. Yeah, the regret would be the insults that would come my way, I think, if things went badly for it. Any new podcasts you've been listening to, Clay? We do podcasts. So are there any new podcasts? I listened to, which Jason, who's in the chat right now, recommended, Kane and Rince, which is a video game podcast, but it is exactly what I was looking for when I looked for recommendations about a book club style podcast. A bunch of British people with a smattering of Americans very seriously talking about video games, which I appreciate. I wish they would loosen up a little bit sometimes, but it's very informative, and they are very thoughtful about it, and I appreciate that. I think it's a good show. It's Kane and Rince.
I recently, over the towards Christmas, started reading, in quotes, audiobooking, the short ghost stories of M.R. James, who's a writer, English writer, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, I can't remember. And there's a podcast called A Podcast for the Curious, which is very similar, almost identical in structure to another show I really like called the HP Podcraft. HP Lovecraft. Yeah, HP Podcraft, that's what it is, where they do they started as an HP Lovecraft show and then expanded out past that once they finished all those stories.
Yeah.
And so I've been listening to a few of those here and there as I've been finishing the M.R. James stories. And I came across another show called Bone and Sickle, which I've been enjoying, which is about it's a folklore kind of monsters and folklore podcast by this guy who wrote a book on the Krampus, which I just bought because I've got some ideas for a potential sequel to Bloody Hell that might be Christmas themed. So I've been thinking about ways to dip into different sort of folklore and mythology, and that really interested me. And I saw the guy at a show, and so I've been listening to that, and it gets into some stuff that I'd never heard of before. So it's pretty fun.
Thank you, Matt Graham, for the super chat. Much appreciated. Thank you for listening and commenting. You've been a long-time commenter. When I recognize your name and your picture, I know I've seen you before somewhere. I was looking at a lot of year-end lists for podcasts, best podcasts, and I find myself podcasting is definitely becoming not prestige, but it's becoming it's moving away from the guerrilla aspect that it used to have.
It's turning into YouTube.
Yeah, well,
kind of.
I would argue YouTube is more guerrilla than the podcasts that get nominated for Best Podcast of the Year awards are all hyper-produced investigative journalism type stuff. It's not really my style for podcasts that I listen to. I tend to prefer just like less produced conversation things. And I have a really hard time getting into a series of podcasts that are like 7 series and it's a murder. And by the end of episode 3, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to Wikipedia what happened here because I can't waste another 3 hours just not knowing what's going on. And I'm really starting to feel like, did you ever watch that McDonald's documentary about the Monopoly pieces?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
It's a good idea for a documentary, but I don't need 8 hours to figure. Like
2 episodes. Yeah.
It could have been 2 hours, and I'd be like, that's fine. I understand everything about it. And some of the podcasts, I feel they're just stretching it out. Some of those stories, and like they're artificially hanging you at the end of episode 3, and it's like, come on, like give me more information than that. So that's my thought.
The hangover from Serial, I think. Serial was so good at it that everybody's trying to chase that dragon, I think. I felt the same.
Right, it was novel when they did it too.
Right,
it's not just like a formula that you now are invested into.
Yeah,
they're a ton of work though. I appreciate them for the work that they put into it. It's just I wish it was a little bit quicker.
Yeah, there's one actually I just came across. Amanda actually recommended it to me. Crap, I don't remember what it's called. It's a CBC. It's a Canadian podcast, and they do like multiple part episodes on different things from recent history. The one that got me into it was a series on the Satanic Panic, which was really good. Like they talked to people involved in certain cases in that era and survivors of X, Y, and Z and people who got falsely accused and stuff. It was really interesting. And I guess they have another series on Nexium, that sex cult, which I heard is very good and much better than the HBO documentary, which I did watch, and I thought it was interesting, but that was another one where I was like, I feel like you could have done this in like 3 episodes.
Yeah. Marissa says we need a Rush podcast, Fly by Night. That's a good. Not that we're seriously talking about this. Do you ever think about podcast ideas and what you would do? I would. Not that I have any time to do any of this, but I would love to do a album track by track podcast. The problem is it would be like extremely niche to my interests. Like it would be albums that I'm actually interested in, and I'm not very good at talking about stuff on my own.
That U2 podcast that Adam, shit, what the hell's his name? I can't remember. The guy from Parks and Rec.
Doesn't he does a Talking Heads? Did he do a U2 one as well?
I think it started. He started his series as a U2 show, or possibly even another one before that. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's fun. I feel like you have to really know the band when you do that stuff. It's not just kind of like you can't just get into Springsteen and be like, okay, I'm gonna talk about Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, I can't wait for next week when we talk about track 3 off Nebraska.
That's my favorite one. Yeah, so it's tough to do. It's like an extremely limited idea.
Talking music is tough though. Like
It is
that's
tough. Yeah.
I when we were doing Radio
Radio
Star
stars.
Murders, I having the video there as kind of a way to drop into it, I thought was very helpful. But just unless you kind of have an angle on it, talking about music on a podcast is very tough and
It
can
is
be very
hard.
boring.
When you watch channels like Rick Beato, it's like people actually know what
Oh,
music is and
love that
explain it.
guy.
It's like, well,
Yeah.
I can't provide any level of information that's on this. So it's really just like my personal reaction to it, and that's not very interesting, but it's still like it feels like something that I want to talk about, and even though I
Yeah,
don't think
yeah.
it's a good idea to do.
That guy makes great videos, and there are some where I'm like, I'm gonna learn something from this, and then he starts going into it. I'm like, oh, this is 12 steps above any understanding that I have.
Yeah. Knowing intervals by ear is basically magic to me. Really,
Mm.
it's like I don't know who can do that. His kid has perfect pitch and everything. It's
I watched one
unbelievable.
recently that they did after Van Halen died, where it was him and another guy were trying to recreate Van Halen's guitar sound, which involves using like some sort of electro thing that dials down the amps that come out of the plug or some shit. And like they're playing these different things and switching it to different things, and they're like, yeah, it's a lot smoother here, it's a lot quieter. I'm like, guys, this is a YouTube video. It sounds exactly the same. Even if we were in the same room, I probably wouldn't be able to tell what the difference was.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's why anytime I see like you look for instrument reviews on YouTube, it's like, look, it sounds like this if you use this pedal, and like this with this pedal. It's like, okay, but this is being condensed and broadcast through YouTube, so it's not
Crushed
exactly
out.
yeah.
It is it's the same with there's a lot of like camera reviews that will
Mm.
show you raw footage, and it's like it doesn't mean anything
Right,
on YouTube.
yeah.
It's just being crushed down to nothing. Love Beato. Eric's is knocking around an album track by track podcast idea. Well, just don't do my bands, and we'll stay on the right side of the track. Beato has 50 of total songs that come up.
Eric's,
He does
let
have
me
a lot
know.
of things.
Let me know if you ever cover Led Zeppelin 1 through 4, and actually any of them, and I'll be on your show.
Thing with podcasts, I don't mind people who disagree with me, but I do mind those who dismiss my ideas. Oh, terrible ideas. Yeah, that's the last thing I just had for 2020 was a video game, and the game that came out this year was the Tony Hawk remake. Was excellent and really good. The favorite game I played that was not released this year is Into the Breach, which I would recommend to everyone who has a Switch. Should go out and buy Into the Breach, which is a fun little game about you. It's based on time, so it's like everything that your enemy is going to do. They sort of show you what your enemy is going to do, and you react to them like chess piece. So it's perfect information, and then playing with it to see what you can do to stop it from happening, because you're always outnumbered or outgunned. So the advantage that you have is that you know what's going to happen, and then you can sort of plan around it. It's kind of a neat idea. It deals with time travel too. If you like sci-fi, it's a good time travel type
cool.
thing. You had Spider-Man. I played a little bit of
Yeah.
Spider-Man earlier. Didn't really get much into it, but I did play a little bit of it.
Yeah, I finally got a PS4 for Christmas 2019, and I didn't really break into it until early into 2020. And Spider-Man was awesome. I've never seen boss battles. I mean, I don't game that much, so maybe everything looks like this. I don't know, but the boss battles were absolutely amazing. Like the final battle with Dr. Octopus is like it's like watching you're playing a movie. It's unreal.
I played a little bit. I made it just made it just into the open world. Like I made it through the Kingpin opening
sure,
sequence, and I was just kind of screwing around. I don't know if it's a combination of age or just game development at this point, but like there's a thing that games do now where a lot of games feel like you need a lot of variety or ability to do a lot of different things to make it seem like this is a modern game. And so when you're playing a game like Spider-Man, it's like, all right, climb up above these guys. And it's like, okay, I climb up above these guys. It's like drop down. If you want to grab them on the right shoulder, hold the right trigger and then pull the B button. And so but it's like if you want to grab him by the foot, hold down the left trigger button while double tapping the Y button. It's like, what the fuck? Like, how am I ever
Yeah.
going to remember to do this? And
Yeah.
then I tried to do it and I just fuck it up real bad and end up just punching him. But the thing is, further into the game, I will never naturally do that to anybody. Like, I will never remember that he can, shoot them with little web guns to gum them up and
I
then you can flip them around or something like that.
I well, I mean, maybe personally you won't, but I feel the same way generally about how much stuff there is to do. But I find with games like that, with like the Batman games and the Spider-Man games, it becomes second nature at a certain point where you end up just getting so used to the controls that it's the
To
stuff
that
that you,
level of depth, you think? Like, you remember virtually every. Because I always rely on,
not
like,
everything, but
I
I
need the
think
game to tell me that I can do something frequently.
yeah.
Like it's like remember you can do this if you hit X twice, and it's like, oh yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, there's sometimes I think it's just the stuff that you're doing. There's a level of repetition built in that in certain situations you know that you can do X, Y, or Z. But I do think what's kind of cool about the way that those games are built with so many variables is that you can kind of just pick what you could pick your road that you prefer as far as like gameplay or attack mode or whatever.
Yeah,
Where like if you prefer doing stealth stuff, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do regarding like dropping down and webbing guys up and stuff like that versus jumping down and hitting them with a certain combination versus another one, whichever you depend that you like better. But
yeah. I'm like Poindexter G on Spider-Man. I just find 5 or 6 moves that I really like,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
do those most of the time. That's
yeah.
what I do. I'm just like the game itself is 5 times that I will
Right. Yeah,
never get
yeah.
into. Yeah,
Some people really get into that stuff, and
I just
I
can't
don't.
remember it.
Yeah,
Like, and
yeah,
it's a matter of like you almost need to practice because when you attempt to do it, you don't. Your muscle memory is like I can't remember how to press the buttons in the appropriate way. This must be a thing of just getting old because I don't remember used to having this problem. But older games
well,
also,
back in our day, there was only two buttons.
I've sort of really I've come around to like I really enjoy simple, elegant design in games. Like Into the Breach is a very elegant, like simple, like clear design, but I think it works really well. And it's just the bigger games. Like I have Red Dead, and I just can't get into it
Mm.
because it's like the first hours of the game are characters just telling you all this various shit you can do, and it's like this is too much. It's too much
Yeah.
stuff. I don't want to do chores. That's terrible.
The only thing that I don't like about the bigger open world games like the Batman ones and the Spider-Man ones is when I played Arkham City, I think it was, I didn't do any of the side missions at first. I just went through the main story, and I somehow managed to like screw up the side missions or something like that. So like I burned through the whole story, and then I was like, oh, okay, now I just have to do side stuff. I guess this is fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never played one of those games where I've successfully found like all 550 Riddler trophies or whatever because it was time to do that. But
Yeah.
but like so now
GameFAQs.com.
yeah, now the thing that I try to do is I try to balance them enough where it's like, okay, I don't immediately go to the next main story thing without doing a couple side things first, because if I do, then I'm not. If I don't, then I'm not going to do them later. So I got to make sure I stagger it and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It takes a little bit to figure out how you prefer to do it.
I've been doing more board game apps though. Verderon brings this up. Board game apps are very good. We've been playing with our friends on tabletop because of COVID. It's been fun. It's been nice. They're getting better. They used to be really bad. Michelle can't stand overcomplicated combat. I agree. Up, down, left, right, BA. I agree with that. Konami and Into the Breach is amazing. No. What else is there? That's pretty much it for my best of 2020. Did you have anything else interesting in 2020? I looked up. I think my favorite movie of the year was Liquid Sky, which we did for
yeah,
the
yeah.
Patreon. I think so. Yeah, yeah. Nothing else
I-
really stuck out, and I think about that movie quite a bit.
Yeah, honestly, I have a hard time remembering movies I watched in 2020. We started shortly after they shut everything down. We started a weekly movie watch chat thing, and I wouldn't say we've probably watched more bad movies than good movies, even though they're all chosen by a poll. But we ended up we end up watching like weird B-level movies from the 90s. Like we watched Hackers and Copycat, and the Last Seduction we watched recently. Tremors was great. Tremors is really good. but yeah, I can't really remember any movies that really stood out to me as that really made an impression on me. I will say though, I have very much so enjoyed doing Rotten Horror Picture Show because I enjoy those movies and I enjoy getting to go back and talk about them and watch some that I've never seen before. So I'd say that's probably the movie highlight for me has probably been doing that show because it lets me get into some deep dive into stuff that I really like.
Yeah, it's nice to complete the to work the way through the lists and everything. Just Mercer had asked if we play chess. I'm watching Queen's Gambit actually right now.
That was great too. We watched that. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think it's very good. It's maybe not like hardly anything is like top tier. We really enjoy it. It's also like the right level of complicated in a TV show where we can fold laundry and watch it. It's well done, but it doesn't demand a lot of your attention. I do have my chess set out. I have no idea how to play chess. I have no idea what the brain of a person who's good at chess is like and what they look at when they see the world. Like, what do they see when they just look at like the kitchen? Do they see some insane organizational thing that they can do? But it's very strange. But I have a chess.com account and I try it every once in a while, but I just don't, I haven't worked at it hard enough to be good. I want to be good, but who knows? I'll never become good.
I tried playing when I was in college. I got this bug. I was like, maybe I'll learn how to play chess. And Jim Galdos, a friend of ours, knows how to play. And so when I was on lunch break from work, we would play over the internet. Like I think AOL Instant Messenger at the time had like a chess app or something that you could play right through there. And I never could figure it out. I just was not good at it. And it was one of those things where it's like,
I only see one path in chess. I only see the one thing that I try to do.
I don't even understand what the paths are. Like I can't even pick a path.
Well, if someone cancels my path, I'm like I'm fucked. I can't do anything at this point. Like I'm not thinking of other things that I can do. I'm just looking at the one piece that I want to move up to that spot.
You know how in like movies when they've got two people who are really good at chess playing together, it's like days between moves.
Yeah.
That was basically how I played chess because I didn't know what to do. So I would just stare at the board and just never make a decision.
Do either of you listen to the How Did This Get Made podcast?
Oh yeah.
I do randomly, not quite as much as I used to.
Yeah.
I don't know what the implication is. I do listen to it. Their best episode is 88 minutes, which is hysterical and very enjoyable.
I always thought when I first got into them, the episode they did on From Justin to Kelly, the American Idol movie, was one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life.
I think I've said this before. I think the podcast actually works better if you've never seen the movie. Sometimes I think that
sometimes,
I think sometimes they're very. Sometimes like I've listened to the podcast and then I've watched a movie and it kind of ruins it for me because when you come in afterwards, you're expecting something different than what it is.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's my only downside to that show.
Yeah, I haven't really listened to it as much as I used to, mainly because a lot of the stuff they've been covering are movies that I don't know.
I don't know them, yeah.
And also, once they started doing live shows, like
I hate live podcasts.
It's not that the shows were bad. It's just like I felt like they talked about the movie a lot less. It ended up becoming like
I hate the energy of live podcasts because they're playing to an audience, and the audience it's good in person, and I'm sure if you go to the show you'd really enjoy yourself. But when you hear recorded live energy, it sounds really forced, and you're like, like it's trying really hard to be funny here. I'm sure in a room full of people who've had 4 or 5 beers, it's going over extremely well. But me listening on my lunch break, it just comes across as too much. I can't listen to it.
Yeah, I got to see them. Maybe that was 2019. Maybe I can't remember. It was a couple years ago, and I thought it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was. I've been drawn to the show less because the movies they're covering I've never even heard of, so it's not really.
Have to dig deep, as Troy is saying. They've it's been 10 years for the show. Yeah. So
wow.
If Rotten Horror goes 10 years, you'll certainly run out of horror movies. I think that are worth bringing up at that point. I don't play Magic the Gathering. I do not.
Nope.
It reminds me, if people want to give us a super chat, feel free. No. Yeah, I guess we can close it out there. It's been an hour. I don't know what else I have to say. I guess we can close it with we were on Lori Loaded's channel the other day, which is a good
Mhm.
conversation. And if people haven't checked that out, you can go to his channel and watch it. It was illuminating for. I don't know if I realized that that's how some people watch Discovery. You know what I mean? I think it was in the back of my mind that that's maybe it, but it's been illuminating to see um, his perspective on Discovery and a lot of his audience members' perspective on Discovery at the same time. Um, it's fascinating to see. Yeah, it's like just the difference. It's very hard to define story.
Mhm.
Ultimately, is what you come down to, and like when you try to explain what a story is, you wonder whether or not there's any validity to what you're saying at some point. Like myself included, I'm like,
Sure, sure.
what is a story like on some level? Um, but whatever I think a story
Well,
is, I think
Wes, thousands of years ago,
I think Discovery just fails at
there
it.
was no writing, and so people communicated and passed their history down through
Oral
oral tradition.
traditions. I'd be down for that. Yeah, it was a good conversation.
Mm.
I don't think it changed much of my opinion about Discovery, really. Um, we have one episode of Discovery left to go. It's just I don't even really know where I'm going with this. It's just like if the Discovery producers are aiming in that direction, I just don't see the show ever improving. Like it's a
Mhm.
split. It's a split in the path. You either have to go one way or the other. You have to go into sort of a like a plot narrative, or you have to go into a story narrative. And I think that
Right.
they've chosen theirs.
Yeah, I actually really like talking to him because he's someone who really appreciates what they're trying to do from a larger world sense, and appreciates the implications of what that stuff might mean. Because, as I said on the show, the stuff he was describing is great, and I think the way that they're going is very interesting. But for me, if the delivery mechanism isn't solid, then that doesn't save the show for me.
I had one, a question I wish I could have asked him. Maybe we will if you
Mhm.
have a follow up conversation.
Well,
Uh,
Wes, he's right here.
he's he's behind door number 3. Uh, I wonder what he thinks is bad about season 2 because he clearly doesn't like
Yeah,
season 2.
yeah, we didn't get into that at all. Yeah.
It would be a good conversation because in my opinion, not much changed between season 2 and
Mm.
season 3. It's whether or not you like the Red Angel story versus the Burn story is what it
Mm.
comes down to.
Well, if I don't want to put words in his mouth, obviously, but if I
Yeah,
had to speculate, if you think about the worlds of season 3 and season 2 is a lot more of an isolated world. Um,
Discovery's
because
off on its own on this isolated mission
yeah,
going out.
they're
Yeah,
off in their own. The Pike stuff is cool, but it's not really adding much to the lore or the mythos of Star Trek. You're
or
not really
Pike
getting
really.
yeah, or you're not getting any new info about Starfleet. You've got Section 31 showing up in some weird bastardized form of Section 31 that's not really adding anything to the table. Season 3, at least, I mean, and the Red Angel stuff is just, it's a complete nonsensical MacGuffin anyway. The Season 3 stuff, at least, is trying to expand its world, and it's
Mm-hmm.
trying to add more lore to the system as far as like what Starfleet looks like 1,000 years in the future, what the Federation looks like. The fact that they put Romulus and Vulcan together as a single planet is a huge move.
Yeah,
So like all of this stuff, they are adding to the storyline. They are extending things out. They're not just playing in the old sandbox. Um,
that's the canon thing though, right? Because I guess the argument there is that season 2 is, to use your word, sort of bastardizing canon because
mm,
it's doing things with like Section 31 and it's doing things with Spock and stuff like this. Like it's changing the Spock character in a way that makes his later appearances, if you're insistent on continuity, later Spock doesn't make a lot of sense
mhm.
after you know about Michael Burnham and things like that.
Sure, sure.
Um, I would agree with that. It is just a difference of whether or not that bothers me. I did like we were just talking on the Discord about how season 3 of Discovery would be improved, and it's just they just missed the focus on
Yeah.
so many episodes. Like
Yeah.
missing the Earth focus, missing the Vars focus of what that episode was
Missing
about.
the focus of the ship.
Yeah.
being-
Books
yeah.
Planet is the same way. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just want to see Georgiou blink away hologram some more.
Yeah,
She'll be back.
It's too bad because they did have some really interesting ideas, I think, in place that they never really exploited. And just the fact that they had the idea is not enough for me. I need to know how that idea is. I need to see it being used in an interesting way instead of just like, here's a laundry list of things that happen in the future.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I guess we'll move on. If anyone has any questions, let us know. It's funny listening to your episodes from season 2 and 3. You were a lot more positive on the second than this.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
I would
Yeah.
I would agree with it.
Yeah.
I don't really remember anything of that besides the burn. Oops. The rest of the story is interesting. Besides the burn.
Yeah, I mean,
Depends on
Depends
how
on-
you're defining that. I guess you have
Yeah.
to explain what you think is outside the burn. Because the other feedback that we got was that there was one comment on his channel that the burn is the MacGuffin, which is
Sure.
sort of true. I think that my response to that is that the MacGuffin has to drive the story outside of what the MacGuffin is. Like that's the whole.
Yes.
The point of the MacGuffin is that it's kind of a meaningless thing that inspires the rest of what's going on. I think that the burn is in such an empty universe that it's become the primary story in a way that it's not supposed to, but that the show has set up in a lot of ways, it's very similar to the Red Angel story. It's really the same kind of structure that they're
Sure,
going with.
sure.
It's just that the burn, the smallness of what you were saying about the Red Angel feels like it's not impacting the universe. So Discovery finding things out about the Red Angel is not, and it feels more like it's about Discovery than about like, what does this mean for the universe? And the burn, all you get is the Discovery crew running into people who are like, can you believe the burn happened? Everything is different. Everything
Yeah.
changed. And you
Yeah.
go, things changed? What changed? And then they don't want to pay any attention to it.
Yeah, the thing with a MacGuffin is there's always a scene in even the hackiest show or movie where they say, we have to get X because if blank gets it first, then something bad is going to happen, right? That doesn't exist on this show. There's no reason, like there's no urgency to them finding this out. There's no implied consequences for if they don't find it out, or implied consequences if they do. I guess the implied consequences if they do is that maybe they could reverse it
Yes.
or something.
That's the only thing that could matter. Yeah.
But even there, they've never even really mentioned that. It's like it's not even clear why they're trying to find it out, except for the sake of finding it out. And it's not. I understand the comment that it's the MacGuffin that is. They're trying to hang all of the world building about the what the world of Star Trek looks like now that the Federation's broken up. They're trying to hang that on this search for the burn, but I don't think that it's working. I think they need to recenter what they're focused on, and we talked about that at length on the show. So
Yeah. I would agree with it. Clay has mega powers. You did. You were green screening yourself for a little
yeah,
bit.
can I do it? Can I do it in real time?
Should work. Yeah.
Ooh, there we go.
I think it's the.
Yeah,
the
look at that.
even better. Yes, and the melody was Sukal's lullaby. I think they've stated. I don't know if they've stated that, but I think that he's whistling that or something. Guess that's it. Still think his mother dying is the cause of the original burn.
Oh yeah, big time.
Seems like it's got to be that.
I mean, if not that, what? And whatever that is not going to be anything.
He stubs his toe
whole-
really aggressively.
Yeah, the whole season is about losing loved ones. I can't imagine it being anything else.
Yeah. All right, Discovery episode 13 will be this week.
But I
Enterprise.
can't wait till those ninja Romulans show up to save the day.
Yeah.
At the last minute with
Her mother.
Earth
What's her name? Gabrielle.
Gabriel. Yeah, with Earth, the Earth people flying in from one side, and who else did we meet? the Navarians
Books,
flying in
books,
from the
books.
other
Planet
side.
guys have got
Books,
other. Yeah, yeah.
Books Planet is
The
taking
bugs.
control of all the bug mines
Yeah.
on the Emerald Chain ship.
They
Can
can't end it
you?
that. They
I
can't end
know.
it
I
that
was
way,
just
right?
gonna
You can't
say.
do 4 out of 4 seasons ending that way, can you?
I can't imagine they like someone did. I guess technically Lower Decks did that too, didn't they? Although that they didn't have everyone they met show up. They had the hell's the Titan. Is that Riker's
Oh,
ship?
the Titan. The Titan shows up to save them.
Yeah,
Yeah, from
but that's
yeah.
like a total surprise. That's not
Yeah.
like a thing that they've friends we've met along the way kind of thing.
Looking at the trailer, I have to assume that the save that everyone comes and saves the day is what happens. But I can't believe you've built 4 separate seasons of 4 different shows and they've all ended that way.
And also, like,
that's crazy.
do you need that many people to blow up Osira? I mean, Detmer mentioned it like in 2 episodes ago. Oh, no, Tilly was like, we took your ship out with Book's tiny little fucking thing. We don't need.
Isn't it a relief to know that STD is over? Yeah, I've been very negative and I've been threatening to not cover Discovery. We'll see. Time heals all wounds, but some wounds are very deep.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not going to be even on for like another year.
I know it's going to take a little bit of time away. I guess that's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Discovery will continue. Enterprise is off until Discovery ends, and then it'll be Enterprise episodes at that point. And I think it'll be one Enterprise episode a week until I'm settled in with my new schedule.
Can I address something really quickly?
Yeah. Do you want me to click a comment?
Yeah. Poindexter G says Mandalorian spoilers both seasons end that way on the show as well. That's different because in Mandalorian, if you want to look at the season that we just watched, that has those characters do come back, but they come back in a way where they are part of the story and part of the plan. On Star Trek, what they do is everybody shows up at the last minute to help shoot the bad guy out of the air. That's not what Mandalorian does. Mandalorian had the other Mandalorians that he met going along the way, and he's got the other guy in the Mandalorian thing, who I won't spoil, obviously, if you haven't seen it. Those people come back as part of the story moving forward. It's not just, oh, our backs are against the wall. Everyone we met along the way is here to save us. They do that with somebody else on Mandalorian Season 2, but they don't do that with those characters. So I would say it's different.
Thank you very much. Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we go away here? Well, the shows are continuing. Anything else?
No, just thank you guys for the support. I'm really happy people have been enjoying Rotten Horror Picture Show because it's definitely a kind of a passion project for me. So I'm glad people are listening, and I hope to be able to bring you guys some more scary movies that maybe you haven't seen, and even the ones that you have, we get to talk about in a new and interesting way. That being said, on Wednesday this week, we have our next wild card, which is 1989's Society, which is, listen, if you haven't seen Society, please watch the movie before you listen to the show, because a lot of it is just not going to make any sense if you don't watch the movie, because it's an okay movie, but it has 10, 15 minutes at the end, unlike anything I guarantee it's unlike anything you've ever seen. So please watch Society and then give it a listen.
Yeah. Check out Society. Just thinking, let me know if there's any, the patrons obviously have an easier way to contact me on Patreon. If there's anything we should do, like people, the Sopranos is in the ether for some reason, because I guess it's memeable at this point, but not that I'm saying we should do the Sopranos, but I would like to do something. Like I'd like some series that's not Star Trek to go through or something like that. But let me know if there's anything that people have obviously been pitching The Expanse and stuff like that.
We don't have to commit to the entire thing, but I know we've been dancing around doing at the very least the Battlestar Galactica miniseries.
Yeah.
I would like to do that since it's something was never anything I watched. But if you're talking like outside of sci-fi completely, I would understand that as well.
Yeah, no, sci-fi. I was outside of sci-fi, but I don't know how successful that would be. The Battlestar is probably a good mix of the two in terms of sci-fi and.
You don't want to start. You don't think our audience will follow us to our podcast about The Crown?
I would love to do The Crown just because it is. No, I don't think so. That's the blessing and the curse of people watching on YouTube. We obviously have a very sci-fi heavy group, so it is difficult to step outside of that. But some of the I started the Deadwood podcast by myself. I didn't make it through the first season because I was lonely and by myself. But it's just like even watching Queen's Gambit, right? Not to go back to Discovery. This is the last thing, but like Queen's Gambit, I'm just watching. It's like I understand literally everything that's happening. Like, is it that hard, guys? Like, just write. And a lot of the scenes there's no dialogue. And I'm not confused. I'm not going like, what the hell is happening around here? Like, I see the girl look sad. She's looking at a jar of pills. I'm like, I understand everything that's happening here. It's just, Discovery just overcomplicates itself. It's like, just take a breath.
Queen's Gambit, it reminded me, this is going to sound like a weird comparison, but it reminded me a lot of The League. The FX comedy, The League.
The comedy, with Nick Kroll and everything.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, The League was about fantasy football, but it wasn't about fantasy football. You didn't have to know how fantasy football works. You don't need to know how chess works to appreciate the Queen's Gambit. The story is a solid story. She could be playing Tetris, and it would be the same thing.
Yeah,
you know, you don't need to know how the game works in order to appreciate it. And also, I mean, that show's so great because you can tell so much story for someone who just goes like this. And you're like, oh my God.
Even the way they position their body language during the game when they shoot them, someone's always leaning forward as the aggressor in the match and stuff. It's well done, but it's not like overly complicated. It's a simple, understandable story. Goddamn.
It's very, very well written. Very, very. What's the word I'm looking for? Economical and storytelling.
Yeah, it is
very well
economical.
done.
Yeah. All right, guys. I guess we're done. Thank you very much. Better Call Saul. Haven't seen that one. Cast of Deadwood of
Great
Age,
show.
all age. Yeah. Deadwood. Do Deadwood again. Yeah.
So, how far did you get into Deadwood season 1?
5 episodes.
If you ever decide that you want to go back to that and just like take a breather from everything else, I'll do that with you because I love Deadwood and I never finished the series.
Oh yeah, you've only seen the first season, right?
I've seen like maybe the first 1 1/4.
Oh, okay.
Because when I was watching it, I had to get the discs from Netflix, and I just stopped doing it. That was how long ago it was. But
Deadwood would be fun. We'll see. We'll see how people respond to that. Do Westworld. People always complain about Westworld.
I can't. I like the first season. I don't have the energy to talk
Yes.
about that.
It's a good rule of thumb when someone says the title and you just go like, that's fine. There's not even anything wrong with the shows. Some shows are just not built for that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Quantum Leap, I think, is out of it to see good Bacula. But we'll call it a day there. Thank you very much for supporting the show. Thank you for watching this stream. And I guess that's it. Thank you for watching all the stuff. So have a good year. 2020 is behind us. Enjoy 2021. Thank you very much. We'll see you guys.